In this session, we want to talk about group policy links. Group policy objects can be linked either to a site, a domain, or an organizational unit. Group policies are processed in this order. You have local policies, policies linked to the site, policies linked to the domain, and policies linked to the OU. Here we have a domain, a site, and an OU. And we have some policies on the right-hand side. Let's take a look and see an example of the order in which these policies are processed. We have the GPO4 linked to the site. So that policy is going to go first. Then we have GPO3, GPO2, and GPO5 linked to the domain. So those policies are going to be processed second. And lastly, we have GPO1 linked to an OU. So that policy is the last policy that will be processed. That policy is the policy that the user will get. The user will usually get the policy that is more specific to the user, that is closest to the user, and the user is in the OU. So when the policies are processed, they come in that order: site, domain, OU. Now there are some exceptions to that. And we have a group policy called Loopback policy. And when that policy is run, it allows the user to receive the local computer policy instead of the user's domain policy, which would be the policy that would have run, which the policy that was connected to the OU. As long as the user is a member within Active Directory, then again, the normal order would be site, domain, OU, of course, with the local policy coming first. But if we wanted to change that up, we can go and we can run a policy called the Loopback policy. We want to take a look at that policy now. We want to go to Tools, Group Policy Management. We want to expand Contoso and right-click on Default Domain Policy and Edit. Computer Configuration, Policies, Administrative Templates, System, Group Policy. Within Group Policy, we want to look for the Loopback policy. So we're going to scroll down to find that Loopback policy. And here it is. Configure user group policy, loopback processing mode. So we're going to click to open that policy. And we're going to enable the policy. Now let's take a look at the policy. You can see here that the policy, we enabled it. And the policy has two settings. Now we have the replace setting and we have the merge setting. The replace setting indicates that the user settings defined in the computer's group policy object replaces the user settings normally applied to the user. And then we have the merge settings. If we choose merge here, Then the merge settings indicate that the user settings defined in the computers group policy objects and the user settings normally applied to the user are combined. If the settings conflict, the user settings in the computers group policy objects take precedence over the user's normal settings, which would be the OU settings for that user. So you can use the loopback policy if you have a situation where you want the computer policy to run for that user. And that might be an occasion if you are in a kiosk, a library, a classroom, and you want the computer policy to override that user's domain policy, you will set this loopback policy. So please remember the order in which the policies are processed. Remember, you have local, site, domain, and OU. If you want to change that normal order, you can go and configure the group policy loopback processing mode for your user. We want to take a look at group policy links. You can link a GPO to a site. You can link a GPO to a domain. You can link a GPO to a organizational unit. For example, here we have contoso.com. We could right click on contoso.com and we could say create a GPO in this domain and link it here. Or we can go to the Barbados OU, right click on Barbados and say create a GPO in this domain and link it here. Now, if we don't want to link the GPO directly to an OU or a domain, we can go to Group Policy Objects, click here on Group Policy Objects, and we can create a GPO in Group Policy Objects and link that GPO to a domain or an OU. But the purpose of creating a group policy object within group policy objects here is that you can create a standalone GPO and then you'll be able then to link that GPO to more than one OU. Let's look at an example. So we're going to right click on group policy objects and we're going to say new group policy object. So let's call this group policy object access to the domain. We're going to click on OK. Then we want to go and edit that group policy object. So we're going to right click on it and edit. And we're going to create a group policy. We go computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, security settings. We're going to go to local policies and we're going to go to security options. And within security options, we want to create a group policy object. And the one we want is allowed to format and eject removable media. So we're going to open this by clicking on it. And we're going to define this policy setting. Here we have administrators and power users, administrative and interactive users. Those people are allowed to format and eject removable media. So we're going to click on apply and click on OK. we now want to link that policy to an OU that we already have. So we're going to close the Group Policy Management Editor. We're going to go to the Barbados OU. We're going to right click, and instead of saying create a GPO in this domain and link it here, we're going to say link an existing GPO. And we look for the GPO that we created, which was access to the domain. And we highlight it and we click on OK. Now remember, the purpose of doing this is that you can take that GPO that you created within Group Policy Objects and you could link it to a number of organizational units. And that's an advantage, because if you wanted to create that same GPO for another OU, instead of creating it all over again, you already have it. So you simply go to the OU, right click on the OU, and you look for that GPO to link it to. Now let us expand the Barbados OU. You can see that under the Barbados OU, there's a Christchurch OU, a St. Michael OU, and a St. Thomas OU. By default, if you create an OU at the top of the OU level here, and you put or link a GPO to that OU, the OU will filter down. The OU settings will filter down to the organizational units below, because Christchurch, St. Michael, and St. Thomas are nested in the Barbados OU. So any policy that you set on the Barbados OU will filter to Christchurch, St. Michael, and St. Thomas. But let's say that you did not want the St. Thomas OU users to have that policy. You did not want that policy to filter down to them, which is the default. What you would do is right click on the St. Thomas policy, and you would say block inheritance. And you can see that there's a little exclamation there by St. Thomas to the left, so that that policy that we created, access to the domain, is not inherited by the St. Thomas users, because we have right clicked on St. Thomas and we said block inheritance. Now, what if the administrator does not want any policy that he creates at the top level to be blocked by another administrator? What he can do is, when he creates that policy, he can right click on the policy and he can click on enforced. Now you might ask yourself, well, suppose the other administrator had already blocked that policy. What happens? Well, enforced overwrites blocked, so that when the administrator, the main administrator, right clicks on his policy and he says enforce, then that block policy no longer exists for St. Thomas. So remember, enforce overrides block. And that is one way that we can use to go around the policies that filter down by default, by blocking or by enforcing. We can also do what we call security filtering on the policy, which means that we can decide that a policy does not apply to a group or a user. So let's look at our example here. We have the policy access to the domain. Let's click on that policy. And we want to click on delegation. Then we're going to come down to the bottom right of the group policy management box, and we're going to click on Advanced. And here you can see access to domain security settings. So what I want to do now is to probably restrict a user or group from receiving this policy. What I could do is to add the user's name. So we're going to click on Add. We're going to click on Add. And we're going to search for the group or the user that we don't want to get this policy. So we want to scroll down here and look. And here we have Ben Smith. So we're going to click on Ben Smith, click on OK, click OK again, and we have the permissions here. So by default, you have read under the allow section. So what we want to do is we want to deny Ben Smith from having these policy settings. So there is this permission called apply group policy. What we want to do is to click on deny group policy. And we're going to also do deny read policy. If we wanted to give a particular user or group permission, then we could come to the apply group policy here under allow. So this is a way of setting a security filter for that particular group policy, whether it be a user, whether it be a group. We look for the apply group policy setting and we either allow or deny. And remember that the apply group policy setting must go along with the read. So if you're going to give a person permission to this policy, you can say apply group policy under allow, but you must also say allow read policy. So that's another way of filtering that group policy object. So a specific user or a specific person can either receive or not receive that particular policy.